Is 7:03, and I want to call the Town and Housing Authority meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Natalie Call present.
Laura Schifrin present.
Oh, hi.
Jazz Sexton Duranian present.
And Courtney Briley present. This meeting is being recorded, and we'll go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to
To
the
the
flag
flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
nation
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chairman's additions and deletions unforeseen prior to 48 hours of this meeting. So I have two. One, Joan is going to update us on the CVRF program here, and maybe we'll do that in maybe under the work session just before Dudley Road. And the other one was Lori's appointment back to the Housing Authority. So I want to just touch on that as well.
Seems like you never left.
Welcome back.
feel the same way.
And Lori, I believe last time we talked about vice chair position for you.
So if Madam Chair, she's sworn in, then I can make a motion to make Lori vice chair.
I second the motion.
Great. Roll call vote, please.
Natalie Call, yes.
Jazz Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Laura Schifrin, yes. Thank you
And
very
Courtney
much,
Briley.
Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. All right. State representative report, Chaz?
I guess I have two things. I'll start off with this one, and I'm going to need some help with this. So if it pleases the board, I honestly don't have time to look any deeper than I can with this, but if somebody could and then bring it back to the board, I'd appreciate it. Through the Department of Housing and Community Development, that's through the Commonwealth, there is a new zoning act that's going through. It's called the MBTA Community Zoning Act. Has anybody heard of that? Okay. Let's see, chapter 18, I'm sorry, section 18 of chapter 358 of the Acts of 2020 adds a new section 3A to the Zoning Act, which is applicable to MBTA communities. The purpose of the section 3A is to encourage MBTA communities to adopt zoning districts where multifamily zoning is permitted as of right and that meet other requirements set forth in the statute. I'm not sure. I tried to look real quick this morning to see if we were a MBTA community. I think we are because we border Shirley, and Shirley has a stop in Shirley, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think we would be considered, but I'm not really sure. I looked real quick to see if they had a database where we could see if Townsend was there, but it doesn't have that. So somebody needs to dig in further. But basically, and the reason why I'm asking is there's it looks like the Zoning Act will allow for us, or will allow for the communities to develop like we were looking at 30B properties, but this would be under chapter 30A instead. I don't know particularly what the provisions are for it. If it is like affordable housing, I'm not really sure, but that's the kind of information I would like if somebody could take this up for me and dig more into it. Then if I need to bring it back to any state meeting, I will for any questions. That's number one. Number two is there's a survey that I've been given on the selectmen side to be able to do, and I've been holding off on it until we can do a little more research. So if we could have somebody kind of dig deeper into this, I would appreciate it.
Jazz, if you can send me that info, I can try to look into it for you.
Okay. I will definitely do that, Madam Chair. And then the next part of the next major thing is that I've really had to keep up a lot with what the legislature is doing right now in regards to the housing initiative that Governor Baker has set forth for the year, for the new fiscal year that we're going through. It does rely partially on some of the COVID funding that's going on. I don't know if any of you have kept up with what the news is, but there's 2 years of COVID, post-COVID funding, and the governor wants it for really 2 areas, one for housing and one for infrastructure. The housing portion is because the state itself is so behind in the housing, and we're jumping on that bandwagon because we are behind in our affordable housing for our municipality. So I'm really trying to keep my finger on the pulse as far as that, and I'll bring that information to the board when I have more. But it looks like there is funding that is going to be placed towards that. It also is going to affect both our planning boards and our zoning boards, that they're going to have to adopt some new bylaws. So things may start to happen, but as we know, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a little bit of time. So I think we should be able to put that in the back of our heads when we're doing our housing production plan as well, is that we may have to be interfacing with the zoning board and the planning board to be able to work in conjunction with what the governor has planned going forward. And those are the 2 major things for housing that I've done since our last meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, there is one more thing. Do we have the trust to trust? We do. I'll talk about it then. So that's it.
Great, thank you, Jazz. So under section 2 appointments, Sheila Harrington, it sounded like Chaz, she'll be joining us here at some point.
Yeah, she's still in session and she doesn't know when, she said.
Okay, that's fine. We will have her when she joins. And then under 2.2, so Jen Goldson is here. So welcome. I think she may have frozen. Okay, perfect. You are there. Great. So I'd love to have her kind of switch over to her to talk a little bit about our HPP. And maybe we could do a quick intro of the board members here, if you don't mind just introducing yourself and a little bit of background, and then we'll turn it over to Jen. Do you want me to go first? I can do that. Okay. My name's Courtney Briley. I am a registered architect here in Massachusetts, and I work full-time as an architect, and I'm fairly new to the Housing Authority over the last couple of years, and have now been sitting as chair just for a couple of meetings. And I am just happy to be kind of helping out, and going to turn it over to my colleagues here. Sure, Lori. Hold on, you're muted.
Sorry, I literally walked in as you were calling a roll call.
I know.
It's been a whirlwind of a day. I'm Laura Schifrin. I am a real estate broker here in Townsend, and I have been for over 40 years. I've also been involved in the town hall for over 40 years, a longtime member of the Housing Authority, the Assessors Board, town properties, and the planning board. I vice chair the planning board. So my goal has always been affordable housing and seeking housing for people who need it. So hopefully we can all work together on this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Chaz?
My name is Chaz Sexton Duranian. I'm the state representative for the Townsend Housing Authority. I've been appointed by the governor to help us in attaining funding or anything else that we need for the state. I've been on the planning board for about 6 years, I would say. So I've been kind of guiding the housing authority for initially to kind of get the help the committee get, or the board get on track I assisted with, I think I started with the 2015 housing production plan, and I worked with the then land use coordinator, helped gather data for that, and then we then put together the Affordable Housing Trust. I was very instrumental in getting that put together, which we just got put into place last year. And then this year, we're really trying to get that funded and moving forward. I've also been kind of instrumental in helping with a lot of, we had a couple of bylaw changes. We had an affordable accessory apartment bylaw change that was done last year. There was what was the thing, Lori? The 30, what was it that we did with planning? The large scale building, the 50,000 square feet. What was that called again?
43D.
The 33B. We
43D.
D as in David.
Yes. 4 as in 1, 2, 3, 4. And 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
43.
Which we helped the planning board kind of pick the areas that they can look into for buildability for that as well.
Natalie?
Okay, sorry. I'm Natalie Call. I've been on the board for about 3 or 4 years, I think. I'm new to Townsend. I'm a veteran, a combat vet, and right now I'm the post commander at Townsend VFW. And I've been learning a lot with housing, especially affordable housing, as I go step by step by step with the leadership on the board. So I'm looking forward to a really good year with affordable housing. And now that we have a goal, I hope we can improve it, and go with what we need to do for Townsend, because I really need affordable housing. It's, it's just one of those things. Okay. Thank you.
Courtney?
Yeah.
If I may, just a little bit of background for Jen. We have, the town was able to obtain in the past HUD 202 funds twice. Once was for Atwood Acres, which was 50 units of affordable housing. And the second time, some 7 or so years ago, because I forget the date, we built Townsend Woods with the last round of HUD 202 funding. That gave us 36 units of senior housing only, which fell under affordable. Those 2 buildings are in perpetuity as affordable units. We have 1 Habitat house in town that was built, and we have, I believe it's 41 units on Turnpike Road, which is a rental community built under 40B, but all of the units there counted as affordable units. I don't have the date for you. I could look it up for later on if you wanted, of when those were built, but they are under the 15-year affordable housing. They're not in perpetuity. I imagine that they could be, but I've not talked to the owner to see if that would be their intention when the 15 years is up. One of the things that I was going to try to address. So that gives, and then under the 43D that Chaz just mentioned, the properties that were selected via the housing and the planning board for this as input, one of them is a potential mixed use near downtown, would be agreeable to residential as well as retail. So that's kind of what we've been looking at. When Natalie came on the board, and I really think it's more than 3 or 4 years because time flies a lot quicker than what we think. Natalie, if you know the year you moved to town?
2017.
All right, she's right. Okay.
Oh, never, Lori.
It seems longer to me.
Oh, don't say it like that. Gosh, I feel so old.
So no. So so from the time she came on the board, and actually since the time we had the ribbon cutting for Townsend Woods, the last 36 units, we knew that no more HUD 202 money was going to be available. So we were looking into, with Sheila Harrington, veterans housing. We explored other sites, Soldier One, whichever one
Soldiers
they
On.
want. We all took
Soldier On.
a Soldier On. We took a field trip out there. Natalie was with me, and it was quite a thing. But anyway, that has not come to fruition. But this board has been working ever since the other building was built to try to get something on board where we could build more affordable housing, and that's where we are today. That and the fact that we now have, thanks to Chaz and his efforts, the trust fund, and we're looking to accomplish trust to trust transfers, as well as now that we have the trust, we can also take financial donations into the trust. So that has been a really huge step for us. And that's the extent of my background. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great.
Madam Chair, if I might add too, Lori, I think we did get the age restricted zoning bylaw done too, right? Didn't that happen?
Yeah, but was that at this last meeting?
Yeah, the last town meeting.
Yeah.
So we did get
So
the 55 and older.
Yeah. So that bylaw's in place, but Chaz is right. We have a lot of, I'm on planning, Chaz was on planning board, and we have had a lot of discussions about easing up on zoning to allow for where Board of Health would allow, obviously, because we're ruled by septic systems here. We're not a city, we're not on public sewer, so we can't just build a lot. It would have to be under the Board of Health. But there are other areas where we could have the construction and be built, but the planning so far we're talked about as a difficult town to work with and get through the planning permit process. You're smiling, I see that. So there are many of us that are in favor of loosening this up a little, and the 43D is that streamlined process. But it says streamlined, but it's still 6 months.
Right.
But it's better than, I guess, 12, 18, 24, or 7 years, which some of them have taken. Does that round that out, Chaz?
Yep. Good job.
All righty. Off to you, Jen.
Okay. Did we get through everybody though? Because I see a couple other names here.
Well, we should introduce
just-
Joan.
Yep. Joan, I think you're still here. Yes, there you are. You're muted if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, Jen. I'm Joan Savoy. I'm the local abstract painter. I'm also the chair of the Townsend Affordable Housing Trust, thanks to Chaz and Lori and
Great.
everybody for recruiting me. And I'm also a new member on the Town Conservation Commission. I guess, if anything, I'm a designer. I design additions on my own houses and do a lot of landscape architecture and stuff like that. I'm a former business owner, a woman-owned business owner, and I'm happy to be on board and glad to see you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. And Courtney, I see someone named Rosie, but I don't know if that's someone you wanted to introduce themselves.
I can't quite see everybody. Rosie, if you could just introduce yourself just in general for us.
Hello?
Hi.
Yep,
we-
you're unmuted.
Okay, I'm just listening.
Okay.
Okay, welcome. I just wanted to figure out who it's different when you're in the room with people because you
I
can
know.
sort of, see like who's in the audience and who's on the board. And it's a little different when we're all on Zoom. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't overlook anybody.
Yep. And then we've got the other people you're seeing is TCAM is just is our
Yeah.
hosting our Zoom today.
Yeah.
And Jody, who you
And Jody. Yes, great. Nice to meet you. So I'm really pleased to be here. I have a short presentation. I'd love to share my screen if that's okay. I see that I'm co-host, so I can go ahead and do that with you all. Now, the thing when I share my screen is your videos get really small and I can only see a few of you. So for what I like to say when I do these presentations is I'm using these slides not to be incredibly formal, but just to help my memory, to help jog what I want to talk to you guys about, and some of the things that I think are important for you all to know when we first get started. But if you have any questions or comments or thoughts, I view this more as a discussion than a formal presentation. So you should feel welcome to just interrupt. And I can't see everyone, so you can just speak up and interrupt. You don't need to worry about raising your fake hand or anything like that. So I'm Jen Goldson. I'm a planning consultant, and I'm sure you saw my proposal, or the quote that I submitted, and probably know some of this already. But I found I'm also a certified woman-owned business, and I founded my small planning firm in 2006. So it's been 15 years now. I can easily keep track. I don't have to do the math in my head because my second daughter was born that year, and that's the year I decided to stop working full-time for the town of the city of Newton. Actually, I was working for then, managing their community preservation program, and decided to try going out on my own. And I thought at first maybe I'd do it for a couple of years, and I kind of stuck my toe in the water, and then it turned into a really successful consulting business, and we grew into a few of us now. So you'll see Barry Fradkin, who's not here tonight, but he is our community planning analyst, and he'll be involved in this project as well. And then you'll also probably see either on emails or, she may not come to meetings, but you'll see our assistant. Her name is Jamie Shelby, and she helps us collect a lot of data and do that kind of things. So you'll see a few of us. Our specialties are really doing multiple things, including housing plans, working with housing trusts, helping communities implement local housing policies. I was very honored years ago now to be asked by Mass Housing Partnership to author 3 of their guidebooks, and you may have seen them. They're still out. They've updated them a few times. One is the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust Guidebook. One is the Trust Operations Manual, and the other is basically about how to use CPA funds to help create and preserve and support your affordable housing and community housing initiatives. We also do other things besides housing. We do community visioning and master plan work, and we really have a specialty in community engagement. I love working with communities and with members of the public, and working both now, online and digital platforms and video conferencing, but I'm really glad to start to get back out into communities as well and working with actual live people in person. So, and then we also help communities with doing RFPs for municipal land disposition and also community preservation plans. And when you meet Barry, you'll probably meet him at one of these meetings that we have with you, but he's our community planning analyst, so he does a lot of different kinds of things, but one of his real specialties is GIS and mapping work and spatial analysis. So you'll see that all of our planning work has mapping exercises that we go through to help people understand and visualize the data that we're talking about, but also to help us understand and see some new connections that maybe we can't see just looking at the numbers. So being a visual person, and maybe Joan, you can relate. I find that the data visualization to also be really helpful. So in terms of the project scope, and I'll go a little bit more into what is an HPP, what's in it, and a little bit about 40B and just getting us all up to speed with some of the lingo here. But a housing production plan, I did kind of skim through, I'll be honest, I didn't read word for word, but I skimmed through and looked through your 2015 housing production plan. And so we think that that's a really good base. We don't like to start from scratch when you already have a document that's, I'm sure you've implemented a number, but it sounds like you've actually done quite a lot in the past few years from what, sorry, I'm trying to remember everybody's names. Chaz and Laura, Laura had, sorry, I can't see everyone, so I'm trying to read my scribbly notes here, had said, but one of the things that we'll want to go through with you is, item by item, what actually did get implemented? What did you, if anything, did you try to implement from that prior plan that you didn't for whatever reason? And maybe it's because things don't work out, the politics in the community. Sometimes it's because the opportunity didn't arise and you're waiting for a good moment. And other times the funding didn't manifest. There's all sorts of reasons, but we want to go through and be very deliberate about understanding what you were able to do with your prior plan and what you weren't. And that's part of something that we want to, work with you all on. So in terms of the project scope, we'll be doing a needs assessment, which basically updates all the numbers that tell you what kind of housing needs, who's living in your community, what kind of housing stock do you have, and we'll be doing that. I'm going to show you a draft project schedule in a moment, but we'll basically be doing that first. And we're also at the same time be looking at development constraints. And I know, you're on septic, there's no sewer. So that's certainly a constraint that you already mentioned. And we'll look at, wetlands and we'll map these things. A lot of it will have stayed the same from your prior plan, sometimes all of it, but we will also look at your zoning bylaw and see these new things that you adopted, the age restricted zoning and the ADU bylaw. And it sounds like you've done quite a bit since 2015 with adopting some progressive zoning. So we'll include that in our analysis. And then we want to work with you on developing housing goals and strategies. And some of the old 2015 goals and strategies could still be relevant. And that's what we want to know. And then other things you may be wanting to integrate into the new plan that maybe you've started to work on or are thinking about, certainly capitalizing the Affordable Housing Trust and looking at the goals for how the trust helps you further your goals. And then there'll also be an implementation action plan, which basically is a matrix that we create that lays out all the strategies in the new plan and says, well, does it cost money? And if so, where does the funding come from? Does it should it, or does it need to be done immediately, year one? Or is it something that you want to do a little bit down the road? The plan is a 5-year plan. And so we'll look at the sort of the timing and some sequencing. And we'll also look at who are the responsible entities in the community, in the town. Really, we look at the town boards and commissions and departments, town officials, elected officials, who has the primary responsibility to implement each strategy. A lot of it, any zoning regulations will fall to the planning board, and of course have to be approved by town meeting and go through the regular process, but we want to identify the responsible entity that will basically create the momentum for that and keep it going. And then we also identify any supporting entities, because we realize and support collaboration in communities, and really a lot of things aren't just done by one board or committee. So I'm just going to keep going, but again, interrupt me, ask questions, clarification, anything you want at any time.
Yes, Jen, I did want to, before I forget.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that you're aware, but we as a town, Townsend, is a member of the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission.
Yes.
And approximately almost 3 years ago now, maybe 2.5 to 3 years ago, we got grant money to assist with our master plan. And I was glad to hear that part of what you do are master plans and your, strategies and stuff like that. But I wanted you to be aware that we have updated data and mapping from MRPC. that was part of that DLTA grant that has not been completed yet, but should be, what I was told, the end of this month, July, but
Oh, great.
I'm not sure. And planning has that contract with, it has that DLTA contract, which states all the tasks that MRPC is supposed to do for us in the master plan. So
That's great. And Courtney shared with us a data book that they had put together, I think a couple of years ago now. So the data was slightly old, but it's good to hear that they're updating
there is
data and mapping.
yeah,
Great.
there is a new one, and
Great.
we'll make sure that you have that.
Yeah, and as soon as possible, because I'll show you the project schedule in a few minutes, but it might even be the next slide. I just can't remember. But we would want to get going on that really right away. I mean, we can talk about the project schedule if you think it's better to wait until MRPC, sorry, I'm not used to saying that acronym, until the regional plan agency is finished. We could shift our schedule for that, but let me see if that's the next slide, actually. Yeah, it is. So this is what we were hoping to do, and you can tell us if you think that this is too aggressive or not realistic. But essentially, we understand technically you need to still sign the contract, but we're assuming that will happen. Maybe tonight if you authorize, Courtney, or maybe you did that right before I came on, but we're assuming July contract award, and tonight's the kickoff meeting. And then what we would really do is really launch into preparing that needs assessment. It usually takes us a number of weeks, especially when we're collecting all of the data, which is what we usually do, but we're very glad if the regional planning agency's already done that. And then if they could give us, the mapping, it might be helpful if they have the map files that they could actually give us, so that our GIS person, Barry, could actually use them, and maybe even, sometimes we like to do different analysis than they may do. So that would be a helpful start if they already have stuff done that they could share, not just as an image file, but as a map package file that we can really manipulate on our own.
Jen, we have updated, I know our assessor's office has updated from the mapping with the overlays as well. So yes, we can definitely, we have all of that.
So when I have Barry try to get the mapping data from the town, who would be the contact?
It would be Jody.
Okay.
And yeah. Jody is our admin. Jody, you should introduce yourself too, actually.
Conveniently, I also work for the assessors.
Okay, great.
Which is what I was going to say.
That's great. So I can have Barry get in touch with you. That's terrific. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and this collaborative effort that you're talking about is something that I've been pushing for a long time. Every time I mention it, Lori rolls her eyes, but outside of that,
in agreement. That's rolling.
Oh, in agreement. Okay. But I think it's important that we all work together, and even though the master plan is still being developed, I like this timeline. This looks really well to me.
Great.
If there's any other information that we need to get from any board, we'll be able to do that without any problems.
That's great. And what I usually do is put together a list. I'd like to see what you already have, so you can send that to me as soon as you can, and then I'll put together a list of anything else that's local data. We'll go and collect any publicly accessible data that we need to supplement. It could be that you have everything we need, but we'll look at that. And then we'll put together a list. I like to just make one ask. I find it, it's more efficient for all of us to just do one ask. So I just put a kind of a comprehensive list together of everything I think that you need. And sometimes you may tell me, oh, I see that you want this, but we don't have this. And that's fine. Sometimes I ask for more than what you have, but like your local census data, I always ask for that just because I like to compare it to the American Community Survey, just to look at those estimates and compare it against your town census, and things like that will be on the list. But I'll put that together and just coordinate through Jody. So that sounds that sounds really helpful, that that you have that collaborative attitude to begin with. And then next week we're working in Dunstable. We just got a contract in Dunstable, and we're having an in-person meeting there next. I think the 28th is a Wednesday. Sorry, the days get all mixed in my head, but we're planning to just do a driving tour of Townsend since we're up in the area anyway. So Barry and I are going to just come in the afternoon and just drive around. We're going to look at the existing affordable, the developments that you already talked about. Townsend, what was it? Townsend Woods and sorry, I wrote them down. Atwood Acres,
Yeah.
and anything else that we can find. The Turnpike Road. We'll drive by all of those and maybe get some photos, but it's mostly for us to get a sense of the community. I don't like planning from a distance if I can help it. I like to just get my.
Jen, do you want a tour guide?
If any, I don't want to put more work on you guys than you want to do, but if anybody is interested, yeah, we would love that. And we are fully vaccinated, and we could also do separate cars and just follow someone. So
okay, why don't you get in touch with me and let me know the time that you're planning to do this,
great.
and I will block that off in my calendar.
Great.
I know I can give you a couple hours anyway.
That's
couldn't do
great.
it all
Yeah,
day.
we were targeting 2:00 next Wednesday.
That sounds perfect.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and we'd love to see any other sites that you think might be appropriate for future development, or anything else that you feel is appropriate for us to review. And if you have certain sites in advance, you could certainly be our tour guide and just take us around. But what Barry's been able to do in the past is he puts in all the addresses we want to see and does a Google map, and then we have a little pretty efficient route, just because we don't know the town, so we want to figure out, we don't want to be going back and forth all the time. We can do that, or you could just show us around, but we can coordinate offline about that. And is it Laura or do you prefer Lori?
Either one,
Okay.
not a problem.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then what we'd like to do is early in September. I know, the summer's a little tough, and also we want to get our footing by doing the analysis first. But what we'd like to do is sometime after Labor Day, we'd like to do an in-person joint meeting with the Housing Authority. Do you call yourself the commission or board? I'm used to housing authorities being a commission, but I heard you guys saying board before. I just want to get the
It's an elected board.
Yeah.
okay. So I'll change that. But with you guys, the planning board and the Affordable Housing Trust, we'd love to have a joint meeting in person. Our scope assumed 3 separate meetings on Zoom, because when we wrote it, everything was still fully on Zoom. But I would prefer an in-person meeting. And I think it would be really a great energy just to get all of these boards that have something to do with potentially implementing the outcome of the housing production plan in the same room together to really hear each other's ideas, talk through housing needs. We'll do a presentation on preliminary findings. It can be, obviously public meeting, the public can attend, but we would run it as a very interactive style, so that the housing authority, you all, the planning board and the trust members can all really talk with each other, and we would facilitate. It would be like a mini workshop for the boards. And that's what I was thinking of doing, if you're in agreement. And that's a change. Our proposal again was 3 separate meetings on Zoom. And I just think it would be more beneficial to do it all together and in person. So I wanted to sort of get your thumbs up on that, if you also think that that could work, assuming we can find a date that is available.
Jody?
Yes, I'm here. I was just muted.
Through the chairman, sorry, Courtney.
Yeah.
I am only available on the 13th or 20th in September for a Monday evening. If we're going to do a planning board meeting, Chaz, what do you recommend? Because Jody could work with Beth in trying to see what would be available.
Well, what I was going to suggest is that we do have the new equipment called the Owl, which we would be able to have a Zoom and an in-person meeting.
That's
So
great.
that, yeah, so that we'll be able to, whoever can show up in person, can be there in person, but we can also project the Zoom screen on the thing, and whoever is remote, like if you're going to be away, Lori, then we'll be able to have you Zoom in. You
No,
can't?
there wasn't it. I'm not available
Okay.
on the 6th or the 27th.
And I didn't actually mean the Monday. I meant any time during those weeks. I can't do the week of the 13th, but I'm pretty open the week of the 6th and the week of the 20th. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, any of those days could work on my end if we could find a time.
So, Jody, if you could work with Beth to see if, and actually we can discuss it at planning Monday night as well. And I'll see if any of the board members of the planning would be willing to meet on a Thursday evening, let's say, which is what housing is more accustomed to, and planning is more Monday nights. But, you know, maybe, I don't know if they can do a Wednesday or whatever. We can have, Jody, can you do a poll, online poll for dates?
I will email Beth and get the ball rolling and see if we can figure it out between us.
Okay.
It would work.
Awesome. All
So
right.
just to clarify for me here. So you already said no 13th. We're looking at like the week of the 6th, preferably. What's
Or-
our preferences?
Well, if it's during the week, it's okay. I can't, I can't do Monday or Tuesday, the week of the 6th. Okay. I can do any time the week of the 13th,
I
except
can't do the week of the 13th. I'm out of town.
for that whole week.
Yeah, pretty much. Let me see.
All right.
I could do Thursday. Sorry. I just can't do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So the 16th is open.
Okay, or the week of the 20th.
Yes.
I can do any time the week of the 20th.
Okay.
And
So-
I just can't do Tuesday, the 21st, but the rest of that week of the 20th, I'm open.
Okay. And that, I mean, selectmen's meetings are on, Chaz is a selectman currently.
Okay.
So their meetings are, I don't even know if they have regular meetings anymore because they meeting all the time. So, but
Yeah,
they're,
we still have our Tuesday meetings every other Tuesday.
okay. All right. So,
Okay. Yeah, that would be great if we can find it. I think it would be a really worthwhile meeting to have all together. And so we can coordinate, I'll coordinate with Jody and we'll try to figure out if that'll work. And then what we would do is we would generate a draft outline of goals and strategies really based on the analysis that we're doing, but also based on that meeting and what comes out of that meeting and some of the priorities and ideas that come out of that meeting. And so we would want to present to you a draft outline before we go through and write the whole thing up. I like to do that. And sometimes I have ideas on there that you haven't heard of yet. Sometimes I go through this process of the needs assessment and getting ideas from the community members on these boards. And then I look at everything and I think of, well, I wonder if this other thing could work, or I wonder if they've thought of this. And so what I like to do is, if I think of other things that maybe weren't generated by you all, I add them to my draft outline and then we can present them and talk about them. And I don't want to write up a draft plan if you're like, Jen, that's a crazy idea, do not include that on here. And so that's why I go through that process. And then what I'd want to do is meet with you. And I think I picked a regular meeting. I tried to look on your website to see when you usually meet. So I think 10:20 would be a normal meeting for this board. And that's when I could, give it to you ahead of time, but that's when we would discuss that outline. And then from there, I can write the plan. And I would get your feedback on the 20th. And then the next meeting, we would review the full draft. And so I'd like to submit that to you a week in advance. So you have, plenty of time to review it. And I'm very good about, if I say I'm going to get it to you on November 10th, and that's written in my schedule in my calendar, you will get it on or before that date. So you should just know, like, maybe plan ahead a little bit if you have some time over the weekend or what have you, just to plan to have a few hours to read through it, because it'll be, it's a pretty meaty plan, as you know, from doing it back in 2015. And then we would meet the following week, right before Thanksgiving, to review it, get your feedback, and I would make revisions, and then I can submit it to the planning board and do you call select board or board of selectmen?
Board of Selectmen.
Okay, I'll change that. So the planning board and the board of selectmen can review in December, and then hopefully approve it then. And if they want some revisions before they approve it, that's pretty common. And the only thing is we'd probably push the schedule into January then. Unless there's some reason that you need to have it done and approved by December. I think we're willing to do it and able to do it on our end. Sometimes we just don't know when we present to the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board if something else will come up that they want us to change or adjust before they vote to approve. But that's the rough time frame at this point. Does that look okay overall?
Jen, this board usually meets on Thursdays. 10:20 is a Wednesday.
Oh, I thought I saw on your, okay, I must be mistaken then, because I looked on the website and I must have just grabbed the wrong date. Okay, so it would actually be the 21st, the 21st then.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and that works for me too. So I'll go ahead and change that. And then the 17th, I might have grabbed a Wednesday too. I might have had that in my head for some reason. Yeah, I did. So it would be the 18th then, if it's Thursday. So I'll go ahead and change both of those.
If I may, Chaz, do you have any indication of when the town meeting will be, when the special town meeting will be?
When funds get certified.
Okay. So it could actually go into, this is our 2020 plan. We are now in 2021. This may go to 2022. Is that what we're looking at?
Well, we would have to have it needs to be submitted and approved, and then it needs to be sent to DHCD as well. And that usually takes, Jen, what's your expertise on that? A couple months?
Okay. So this is what I do to make it as streamlined as possible. I usually send Phil DiMartino at DHCD an early copy, like after you all look at it in November, and you tell me like, yeah, this is okay. I want to change a few things here and there.
Right.
When I submit it to the planning board in December, that's the version I would then also send to Phil just as an informal. I'm like, hey, it doesn't start a formal clock, but I give it to him and I say, they're about to review this, planning board and board of selectmen. Can you just take a look, make sure that we're not missing anything? And he usually gets back to me pretty quickly. So the reason I do that is because DHCD, once you submit it officially after the local approval, after board of selectmen and planning board vote on it, then you can submit it officially, and that's when the official clock starts ticking. And so they have 30 days to review for completeness. Yeah. And then once they decide, and then in that period, they could send it back to you and say it's not complete. And I don't want that to happen. So that's why I do that early review. And so we can be relatively assured that that won't happen. So that means that from the day you submit it to them, they have 90 days to review it and approve it. And the other thing you should know, though, is even though they have 90 days, well, there's two things you should know. One is, in my experience, they've never taken 90 days. They're always much quicker. Like in my experience, they've been able to do 30 days, maybe 6 weeks, but it's never been 90 days. But they do have that amount of time. So we can't count on that being earlier. But the second thing you should know is they have a custom of approving it retroactive to the day that you submitted them a complete plan. So even if they take 90 days, they're going to date the letter and say that it's approved as of the day you submitted it, which according to this timeline could potentially be sometime in December, depending on the local votes and all of that.
Right.
Does that make sense? The way
so this would be a 2021 plan.
It could be if we got it in before the end of December. Yeah.
Okay.
Jen, though, as far as these programs go, do they match up with the fiscal year anyway? So it would still be FY22?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it doesn't, there's no regulation that says it has to be either calendar year or fiscal year. Most of my clients prefer it to be the fiscal year just because that's how they do everything else.
Right.
But if you wanted it to be the calendar year, there's nothing at the state level that says it needs to be one way or the other. And we don't need to make that decision now. You can wait and tell me
Okay.
as we go.
And that was State Representative Sheila Harrington.
Oh, okay. Hi, nice to meet you.
Sorry, I'm late.
That's
Big
okay.
day at the State House. You can now go gamble online. It's okay now.
Great. Just what I wanted to do. I'll do that after the meeting.
And Dunstable got an article. The two big bills were that and Dunstable getting an Article 97 bill through. But I digress.
Okay. So I'll move. I'd like to move on unless we have any other thoughts or questions about the draft schedule. Okay, and I will send around a new copy of the schedule. I have this as a handout as well that I'll send to you, and I'll adjust the dates so that it's the Thursday meetings. And then if we can pin down that joint meeting, I can give you the actual date for that on the new schedule as well. All right, great. And so just some general background. So why do communities do a housing production plan? And I think you probably all know this, but I also know that this is being recorded, and maybe for the benefit of other folks watching, they might be scratching their heads thinking, what is a housing production plan, and why would we even want one? So really it's a voluntary plan. There's nothing, even though it's a state recognized plan, there's nothing that says you have to have one. It's something that towns who I think are proactive towns and trying to really plan ahead for their future, their housing future. It's a way for you to shape your own future. It's a way and that's what you're doing with your master plan as well. It's a way for you to think ahead, think about very thoughtfully about what are the local policies and how do you want to shape future housing development and preservation of housing. And I know that Lori, you had mentioned one project that has an expiring use. So we want to look at what is the best preservation for those existing units, as well as how do you address housing needs with new units in addition to that. And then it's also a way to gain more local control. So, 40B has a really bad rap kind of at large in the general public. And communities, have I guess an understandable reaction that we want to have control over our future and not have a developer come in and say that we just want to waive all your zoning so that we can build something where maybe the town didn't envision having building in before. And so understanding that 40B, when you're below, and I'm going to talk about these numbers in a minute, but when your town doesn't have at least 10% of its housing stock as affordable, that means that developers can come in and under comprehensive permit, under Chapter 40B, ask the zoning board to essentially waive local regulations. And that includes zoning regulations so that they can build affordable and mixed income housing. And so what an HPP does, and that just stands for Housing Production Plan, what that does is it helps you gain local control if you meet certain production goals. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but it's not that you have an HPP and suddenly you have local control. I'm going to talk about the steps you need to go through to gain that local control. But that is one of the main benefits of having an HPP. I also think that being thoughtful in how you want to shape your future helps you to preserve the things that you really do love about your community. And it's, I love Joni Mitchell. I'm a musician as well, and I play guitar and I sing. And I'm sure you all know her song, A Big Yellow Taxi. Now I can't remember the name of it, but there's a line in there, pave paradise and put up a parking lot. And I think that's so true. I mean, communities don't want that to happen. And I think that all of you here are on this board or on the Housing Trust because you care about the community and you want to promote housing, but at the same time, you don't want to lose the things that you love about your community. And especially in a rural community like Townsend, it's even more important in many ways to be very thoughtful about how do you want to preserve the things that you love about the community and that contribute to your quality of life and your environmental health, et cetera. And But then the fourth point is really recognizing that having diverse housing choices actually nurtures a healthy community. So we're just talking about having a healthy environment and preserving things you love, but having housing choices is part of preserving and creating a healthy community as well. As people age in the community, we're going to talk a little bit about your demographics in a minute, but as people age in the community, the housing situation that they've been in for maybe decades isn't always appropriate as people age. And it's not always the best way to live in the community if you want to stay in that community. So that's just one example of why housing choice is so important to communities, along with all of these other things. So that's my little soapbox, and hopefully I didn't get too preachy. But now let's get into some of the nitty gritty. So the contents of the report that you're gonna, you'll see the full complete draft, but you'll see pieces of this as we work towards it. And so this summer we'll be doing the comprehensive housing needs assessment and the development constraints analysis. And we want to send that to you so that you can just make sure that we're understanding the community and have all the latest information. Lori, did you want to say something?
Yes, before you go on, because you had made the point of saying that the housing production plan is not mandated, but a wise choice to make. Basically, so isn't like the master plan or updating your charter or things like that. But what I wanted, since you're, giving information, I wanted to bring out for some people who are watching that may not know, that if you don't have those things, if you don't plan appropriately for your town and you don't update appropriately for your town, you are not as likely to get grant funds. When you go after some grants that can be very helpful to your community, if you don't have a housing production plan, if you don't have an updated master plan, if you don't have these things, these are part of the criteria that are looked at by the state, and or federal loans, whatever, but definitely by the state. So I wanted to make that point.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And actually, I think I'm going to add that to my slide because I talk about housing production plans all the time, and I don't mention that benefit. And it is really important to think about that too.
Yeah, because I could sit there and go, well, then why are we doing this?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we talked a little bit about some of this already, so I'm going to keep going here. But essentially, these are the components that you'll see in your housing production plan. And I'm sure your prior plan has all of these elements too. So it'll be a format that you're very familiar with already. So let's talk a little bit about 40B, and 40B can be complicated, but I tried to really just draw out the basic elements of Chapter 40B, the comprehensive permit law. It was created in 1969. Many people don't realize that. And really the goal was around social equity and having a fair share of affordable housing in every community in all of Massachusetts. And the way the law defines that is 10% of your year-round housing stock shall be affordable. And I'm going to talk about, well, what does that mean, shall be affordable? Because it doesn't always mean what people think it means. And so the state statute sets that goal, 10% of your housing stock or 1.5% of your general land area minimum. What the housing production plan focuses on is producing units to count toward that 10% housing stock. So we don't look at the general land area minimum. Sometimes communities want to do that calculation on their own, but it's not part of a housing production plan. If the goals are not met, as I said before, developers can come in and seek 40B comprehensive permits. Now, sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes, the local community is really embracing the development and feels that it's actually a good mechanism. Maybe it's a good location, good design, and it's serving a need. Other times it can get very contentious and communities don't want the developers to come in with certain 40Bs. So I'm just, putting that out there that sometimes people think 40B is just this terrible thing. And I would want you to also think about it as a tool that you can use to promote things that you want to see as well. And then denials of 40B projects are often overturned. And that's the reason that most communities want more local control. And so I'll get into that in a moment. But first, I wanted to give a little bit more of a definition of what I mean when I say the term affordable housing. So affordable housing doesn't mean Section 8 housing. That's what a lot of people say, is this Section 8? And Section 8 is the rental voucher program of the federal government. That's a kind of a short term for the voucher program, or it's kind of a slang term now for Section 8 housing. Section 8 is one mechanism to create units that are more affordable for the rental population. And that program typically provides a voucher that you can go and rent any apartment that meets HUD criteria. What I'm talking about is different. What I'm talking about is affordable housing that's actually deed restricted and is specific to the incomes that you see on the screen. And I'm going to talk about why you're seeing, 8 different income figures here. But it's restricted to households who earn low or moderate income. And that is actually higher than a lot of people realize. And that's why I put these actual numbers on the slide. And it changes every year, and usually it goes up. But it's based on the area median income, which is this whole region that includes over 100 communities. It even goes up into New Hampshire, includes your community, goes all the way down into Boston and Cambridge and Quincy. And so it's a very large area. And they look at the median income of people who live in that whole area. And that's how the federal government comes up with this income criteria. So let me just run you through this, because this is really important for people to understand. If you're a single person, you live alone, and you make $70,000, $750,000 a year or less, you could qualify potentially for affordable housing. Now that surprises a lot of people, because in my experience, when I'm working with audiences and teaching a little bit about what is affordable housing, sometimes I do these polling exercises, and I ask them to first guess before I tell them the number. And I would say 80 to 90 people in the rooms that I work with doing this kind of exercise guess much, much lower than what the actual figures are. So 70,754 for a person of one or less. And then I put that 47,000 there because I wanted you to also see what 50% of the area median income is. When I work with communities, I often like to give them a bit of a range, because affordable housing isn't just trying to get affordable housing at the very max that you'd consider affordable. There's often quite a need for more deeply affordable housing in the community, and we'll look at that. But one thing that I did pull is some local Townsend data, just to look at how does what the median household in your community earn, how does the median family household income and non-families, and I'll explain what I mean by those, how does that compare to what the region-wide figures are? And you'll see that you're kind of in this range. So it's kind of comparable to what you see in the region. Now, we don't know, all the household sizes. Usually the median household income is a household of 4. But for non-families, it's typically a single person household, or maybe it could be a household with people who are living together that are not related. But there's a lot of single person households considered non-family. So these are different household sizes. So this isn't comparing apples to apples, but I just wanted to kind of show you the range of who's living in Townsend versus what are the regional income criteria for affordable housing. And so let me just continue to explain this chart here. You can see that I put these little people. And so this represents a 2-person household, this is a 3-person household, and this is a 4-person household. And so sometimes people ask, well, when you talk about a 4-person household, does that include children? And the answer is it can, and it probably does, but it doesn't have to. It just means 4 people, 4 souls, 4 human souls living in a house together. It could be 2 adults, 2 kids. It could be 1 adult, 3 kids. There's all sorts of variations. It could be multiple earners or 1 earner. You don't know. All you know is that the median income for a household of 4 people in the region is $101,000. And that would be a household that would qualify if they made $101,000 or less for affordable housing. So these are the units. When we say affordable housing, these are the income levels that we're talking about. And it can go lower as well. I just showed you 80% of the area median income and 50%. So I'm just going to pause here. I know I talk a lot. Is this making sense? Is anybody surprised? Do you have any questions or want me to clarify anything? And also catch me out if I say I'm going to explain something and then I forget to. Tell me, like, you said you're going to explain something and you didn't. Sometimes I forget.
The only question I would ask is when you say the 50% and the 80%, I just actually heard at a meeting I was at a week ago about there's considered low income earners and then like really low income earners. So you saying that there's the lower number, the 50% would be what would be for the lowest income earners?
Not the lowest. There's another figure I didn't put in here. It would be the extremely low income, and that would be at 30% of the AMI.
Okay.
I'm happy to get you those numbers too. I just didn't include them here.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. So let me move on. I can always come back if there's more questions on that. Before I talked about if you have a housing production plan, it doesn't mean you automatically have control or something called safe harbor. I'm assuming you all have been familiar with the term safe harbor, but let me just explain it. So safe harbor is kind of a slang in some ways, or it's a little bit. It's not a technical official term. The technical term is when you have there's a number of ways to meet safe harbor, but in terms of the housing production plan, we talk about certification of the housing production plan. And so there's two terms in this little flow chart that I've created that is really important, and people get confused all the time. So if you get them mixed up, don't worry. I'm pretty good at correcting people, but I just want you to know there's two things. There's one, approval, and the second term is certification, and they mean totally different things in the context of a housing production plan. So the first one, approval, just means that your plan's been locally approved by your your board of selectmen and your planning board and the state. And what does that get you? It doesn't really get you much of anything in terms of, safe harbor, but it gives you an avenue. It's really the first step to getting to permit for your town 17 homes or units. And I'm just getting a note that my internet is unstable. So if I freeze or something, just tell me and I'll try to repeat what I said. If the town can permit 17 homes that count on something that's called the subsidized housing inventory as affordable in your community that meet the criteria that I talked about before. If you permit 17 homes that count on the SHI, then you can ask the state to then certify your plan saying, we have met our annual production goal. Will you please certify our plan? And the state then writes you a letter saying, we're certifying your plan and now you are in safe harbor. And what that does is it can allow your zoning board of appeals to deny 40B comprehensive permit applications or to place conditions on the approval of those applications that would otherwise not be upheld by the Housing Appeals Committee under appeal. So it gives your town more control in that way. When you have a certified HPP, you can deny 40Bs without the threat of appeals. Those appeals will be upheld. So I just want to pause. There's a lot of jargon on this slide and a lot of things. If you have never heard this before, you might be scratching your head, and I'm happy to explain this more. But you'll see I have another number in there I didn't even explain. It says number 2 here. It says town permits set a 1-year safe harbor. If you permit 34, then you get 2 years safe harbor. So it's just the 0.5% of your year-round housing stock and 1%. That's how those numbers are calculated. So any questions on this? I almost hate to go through this slide because people, rightfully so, very confused. It's often territory that people aren't familiar with, and I'm happy to answer questions.
And we've never been in
and
the
also, if you have
certification
questions on the
stage
side
for
that you
that.
want to send me an email, please feel happy. Okay, yeah. It's not easy. Most towns who create housing production plans don't get to certification.
Mm.
But it's not impossible. And without the plan, you definitely wouldn't get a certified plan. All right, so we just pulled a few key facts. And so your prior plan was created in June of 2015. The most current list that I got from DHCD a couple of days ago, is says that your subsidized housing inventory now is at 4.32%. Sometimes towns tell me that they're still working on some, unit forms to count more, but that's the record that DHCD has at this point. And so just doing a straight calculation, that means you need 191 additional units to meet that 10% minimum goal of the state. And then again, your 1-year certification goal for the purpose of the housing production plan to get it certified would be that 17 units. And so when you see the strategies that we end up creating for your housing production plan, we focus on those 17 units as a goal. You can't, as it's not easy to control. And some would say it's impossible to control getting those 17 units every year or even in 1 year, because so much relies on the market. But there are things that the community can do to put the wheels in motion. And you've already approved a number of zoning ordinances, zoning bylaws. And we can also look at some other mechanisms, like what can your housing trust do and things like that. But that would be a goal. That specific number you'll see as a goal in the draft HPP that I give to you in a few months. Okay, this is your current SHI. This is the list that we just acquired from DHCD, and it shows each of the properties that have affordable housing units that do count on your subsidized housing inventory, your SHI. And it also shows, Lori, you were talking about which ones are in perpetuity and which ones may be expiring. And it shows that in 2029, the Atwood Acres affordability of the 50 units would expire. So that's something that we'll want to, you still have some time. It's not within the 5-year, technically within the 5-year scope of the HPP, but there's no reason to wait to the last moment, is my opinion. So we might as well start thinking about, what needs to be put in place and what kind of motions should the town make to help preserve those units so you don't lose them. But the rest look like they are in perpetuity.
Thank you for saying that, because
I didn't know that.
not under that impression. It was a HUD, as it says.
Yeah.
So if you go to Atwood, so why was Atwood Town? Oh, wait a minute.
There's Atwood 2, Townsend Woods.
And
Yeah, is this the one you were talking about before, or was there?
No, the first one was Atwood Acres, the 50 units.
Yeah.
That was built as affordable housing. So it was not senior housing. It was people with disabilities. It was a lot. It was affordable across the board. Where Atwood Townsend Woods is all
Senior housing.
that's all senior housing. And it is 36. I mean, I'm glad to Turnpike Village perpetuity. That's the one I was talking about.
Ah, okay.
48 units.
They are saying it's in perpetuity. Now, is it possible this is wrong? Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. So we can check that and see if that's correct.
I wonder if that isn't reversed. If it's perpetuity for Atwood Acres and has an expiration date for Turnpike Village.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll sleuth that out as part of our scope and try to figure out if this is actually accurate or not in terms of the affordability expiration. We'll let you know.
Okay.
Hey, Laurie, I'm pretty sure it's Joan. I'm pretty sure that Atwood Acres is it does expire after the 15 year. It will expire in 2029, because when I was doing my research on for the CDBG grant, and we were looking at affordable units, because that was such a big thing. That seemed to have been I could be wrong, but I think Jen's chart is correct.
Okay, and Jen, I think if you have wherewithal to investigate original documents for that, how it was drafted,
I'm going to actually, I'm going to put it on DHCD and ask them where they got this information from. First, we may not be able to get the original documents. Usually the town has those or the subsidizing agency. I mean, we could follow up with some contacts at Mass Housing, but my first stop will be DHCD and
Yeah,
just see.
I think they poll the town, and I think that information may have been supplied to DHCD from the town, but I don't think that's correct. I agree. I think Atwood Acres is perpetuity, and I think Turnpike Village is the one that has an expiration on it. And I do have original documents for Atwood, so if we need that, I have all of that. I have actually, yeah, I have most of the original documents for a lot of these.
Okay, that needs to be verified.
Yep.
Okay. All right, good. So we have an issue already to look at. All right, and so so my point, which I don't mean to hammer it home, but I do want to make the point that this isn't all about getting to the 10% or getting that 17. You know, some communities really want us to focus on only that, and I like to make the point that this is really more than that. It's really meant for you, your community, to address changing housing needs. And I underline the word changing because your population's changing, as well as times are changing, preferences are changing, the region is changing. But one thing that I did just quickly, you know, this is not to be considered to replace our full comprehensive housing needs assessment. And we're certainly going to pull all the, you know, the data or look at what your RPA's done. But what I did do, just to do something quick for tonight, is I looked at, there's a site called Datatown, Mass Housing Partnership, launched it, I guess, a couple of years ago now. And it makes it very easy to see some of your demographics and how they've changed. So I just wanted to see for myself, what are some of the main changes? And I often look at age first, because we know, you know, regionally and all across the country, actually, the country's getting older. So this is not just a Townsend phenomenon, but you can see from this, I'm going to go through like one of those, you remember those old flip books? I'm going to go through this quickly and then I'm going to go back. So you're going to see different years. This is 1990. And what I want you to keep your eye on is the peaks. So here you've got the peak of what I would say middle-aged people. I don't know if someone 30 would consider themselves middle-aged, but 30 to 44, you're seeing that these three bars are more than what you'd find in the state. So you had a lot of people living in your community who were this age. In proportion, it was a lot more people than proportionally you see in terms of trends through the state. So are you understanding the way this chart is before I start to do the flip? Okay. Mm-hmm. And so you'll also see that you had less people living here in their 20s than the state saw. And that makes sense because, you know, people in their 20s are typically closer to job centers in Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, places like that. And then you had a lot more people who were young. You had a lot of kids, more so than seen across the state, but you had less older people than statewide. And so I want you to keep your eye, I would just recommend you keep your eye on the peaks, and we can go back and you can look at more detail if you want. So that's 1990, 2000, 2010, 2019, and these are estimates. And so you can see, so I'm going to go backwards. You can see very clearly, this is what we mean when we say your community in the region as well is aging. You can see the shift in the population in terms of age. And what you see now is that this is an estimate, so it's not a 100% sample. When the 2020 census comes out, we'll get a better sense of this. But in terms of the estimates, you'll see that the peak for your ages now are more in their 50s and into their 60s. And you can see that you have a greater population in that age, you know, or really from 45 to 69 is where I'm seeing the peaks, with a lot in their 50s, in their late 50s. And you can see that that's more proportionally than you see statewide. You can also see that you don't have quite as many older in terms of over 70 as you see statewide, but you certainly you filled in those rectangles more than you had originally in this I shouldn't say originally, back in 1990. So you can see in 1990, there was a lot more kind of white space in these rectangles. And you've sort of filled that in as you went on. So you're aging, and that's what we mean. And you have less kids than proportionally. I'm not saying as an absolute number. I didn't run that number, but proportionally, you have less kids here than you did when you're comparing it against the state. So I guess my question for you is, does this feel right to you? Sometimes data's wrong. So I always like to ask, in terms of what you are seeing in your community, does this feel like the trend that you're seeing? And then the point I'd like to make is, as demographics change in your community, as household composition changes, as the age of the population changes, your housing needs also change. And so this is directly tied to looking at, well, what are your housing needs now? And then projecting that into the future as well. So let me stop there, and I'm happy to go back to any of those years if you'd like me to.
Okay, Madam Chair, this is Lori. Can I comment?
Yep.
So, as I stated before, I'm in real estate, and I've done that here for over 40 years. So this looks as no surprise to me, because people who came here 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and started their families, they're still here. So their kids have gone through the high school, they're in college now, they may not be here, but they're still here. And I think anybody who's been here for any length of time knows, if they're active in the town, they know who's here, and that not that many people leave. I guess I'm not surprised. There's a housing shortage everywhere. Not just Townsend, not Fitchburg, not Leominster, not the state, it's the country. So the New England area in general is way behind in housing production. Known fact, for over 40 years, they started telling us this, but your local communities go, oh, poo-poo, we're here. Gee, wonder why we built those new schools. What happened? So it's not going to change until we have the housing to let more people come in.
Could I make a comment on that too? So because we're going through redistricting this year, the three towns in the area that have always been really comparable size-wise are Groton, Pepperell, and Townsend. Pepperell's the biggest, Groton's the middle, and Townsend is third. But there's not a huge difference between them up until now. And when I was looking, I was surprised at what I was looking at some data that showed a really proposed smaller population for Townsend, which I hadn't really realized that, but I think it's what you just said. You've got people that are here that bought their house in the 80s and the 90s, and their kids have grown up now, but they didn't move. But you also have the fact that when this community really started to really grow was with Timberley Park, probably. That was in the tech boom and people working for digital and everything. So
70s, 80s.
Yeah, so you got a boom. Yeah, you got a boom then. The problem is they were also somewhat affordable to people working in those industries at that time. But the housing prices now are less inviting for a young couple or a single young person trying to buy a home. It's not that there isn't the opportunities anymore in the town that there were.
And I'll jump onto that too, Sheila, that in my investigations for it, I mean, it's nice to see that one cohort is moving in age. So that says to me that these individuals are staying in town. And I do believe it has to do with the Timberley Park area. My focus of interest would be now before that, if you look at the younger cohorts are actually moving into town and staying in town, which is a good thing. And I wanted to look at what exactly are those cohorts. And if you look, the majority of those are single mothers. So we have to keep an eye out on that too as well. And those are individuals with single households are the ones that are in need for affordable housing.
Right.
Okay, and to that, another thought. In 1990, I remember, or 89 or 90, Chief May at the time standing up at annual town meeting and saying, if we don't have a building moratorium, if we don't stop this, we're going to be over 10,000 people. That never happened. They did institute a moratorium for at least 2 years where no building was allowed. And they had a number of years where where the building inspector could only issue 12 permits a year. Well, right there, you had years of non-growth.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And there's also, it seems, oh, I'm sorry.
the population is under 9,000 now.
Mhm.
Was that in the 90s then, Lori? The moratorium and the 12 units a year?
It was in the
Excuse me,
90s.
I'm going to close the door on my dog.
Okay, in the 90s.
was in
Okay,
the
yeah,
90s.
that's good to know. So when we look at, because I mean, your prior plan will have these numbers, but when we look at that, then we'll understand a little bit more about what was going on. All right, so I'm going to keep on. I don't want to take your whole evening up, but I know we could probably talk about, all sorts of things. But really the question, and this is the reason that I really love doing planning work, because it's not easy. And the question really at the heart of this and all of the planning work we do, whether we're doing a master plan or any other kind of plan, it's really trying to figure out what's the right balance in this community between preservation and growth, between preservation and development. And that's really at the heart of the question, the heart of all of these planning efforts. And I don't know the answer for your community. My feeling is that only the community can tell me what the right balance is. And so that's what we'll be really trying to work towards, is figuring out how do you protect the characteristics that you love and you want to preserve about this community. You don't want so much change that the community becomes unrecognizable. But how do you do that and still create more housing options? You need more housing options. You need more affordable housing options. And how do you do that to address those local needs and the regional needs? And, Laura, you pointed out there's really needs across the country, which is true. And how do you do that? And I don't claim to have the answer, being an outsider, but that's why I want to work so closely with you all to try to figure that out.
And Jen, quite honestly, why we are looking to your expertise for this is exactly that piece, because we have tried other efforts before in vain because we didn't hit that sweet spot. So we're hoping you can help us out with that.
One thing too, I think is interesting, when you were talking about the 1.5% of the average medium footprint of the land in the town. Mm-hmm. Townsend is very land heavy. I mean, there is a lot of undeveloped land. So you could keep I think you got to strike that balance, but if there is a town that maybe presents that opportunity, it's Townsend, because you could still keep an enormous part of Townsend natural and develop. Part of the problem is that a lot of the property is, because of it being, wetlands protection or whatnot, it's not buildable land, for one reason or another. But I still think I think that the problem is, you do have the competing interests, and the interest in protecting the environment is across the board. It's not one group. I think most of Townsend feels that's important.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of land that hasn't been touched. So if anyone has the opportunity, I think they do.
That's great. Okay, this is, a great conversation, and it helps me. I love kickoff meetings where I'm actually learning a lot about the community right away. And I don't know, Courtney, I don't know if you actually even got a chance to distribute this worksheet to folks. Okay, good. So I would love to talk, some of this we've probably talked about already, but I use this worksheet when I start housing plans with communities because it helps me get a quick sense. What are the issues here? How supportive is leadership? And how really, to what level does the community agree on things, or how contentious are things? And then what is your capacity? And I know some of this already in terms of the question number 5, because we've talked about the trust and you all on the planning board, but so we don't have to repeat things that we've already talked about in this meeting, but I would just love some feedback on some of these, if you had a chance to think about it in the last few days. And so, one thing I like to ask, recognizing how important leadership is in communities toward moving housing agendas forward. I always like to ask if the select board, if you think the select board, if it's clear what priorities are I'm stuttering because some communities actually have priorities that the Board of Selectmen has written out, and it's easy. It's just like, here are our priorities, and it's an easy question. Others, they kind of go day to day, year to year, week to week, and the priorities aren't clear because they're not in writing, but sometimes you can figure out what they are by the way the Board of Selectmen, I'm sorry, I'm already trained myself to say select board, so now I'm trying to click it over. So please don't be offended. I'm also trying, both of my children want me to say they instead of she. And so that's been like oh my gosh, I got to flip my head around a little bit here. So please don't take any offense. But the top 3 priorities of the select board, sometimes you can tell by what they've focused their own initiatives on, the way that they voted, where they're sort of focusing priorities on. And so that's my first question for you. And it's not meant to be, I really just want to know if and it's fair for you to say, I don't know what the Board of Selectmen's priorities are because, we don't have them written down, and so I don't know, Chaz, if you want to take that one on as a member or not, but I would just love to get a sense of the leadership.
Right now?
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to fill it out and send it in and not have to be on stage here. To be honest, right now we're kind of reorganizing the board itself. So the priorities are it's more designed towards the fiscal responsibility end of it, getting control of the budgets, and then assessing priorities once we get that under control.
Okay, that's fair. And I know that you said that things are really changing, but in the past, how would you characterize, in the recent past?
Then this would just be my opinion. It was just whatever came in front of the board. That's what they would take care of. I know I can speak to the Housing Authority would put something forward, and then they would deliberate on that. Planning would bring something forward, you know what I mean? So it was more of the boards and committees that were doing we're shaping the focus of the selectmen.
Okay, that's good to know. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that question?
I just think that they've, in hearing what Lori talked about several years ago with putting the moratorium on it, I think partly because my job is so consumed with people that can't find housing all the time. Mm-hmm. And we're about to lose a major housing area in Ayer. Potentially 120 families will be displaced, and there's just nowhere to go. And so I guess my only thought is that although ownership is obviously a great thing for people, I don't think there's nearly enough good rental housing, even though Townsend has more than some of the local communities. But the need for good rental housing is drastic right now, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So why don't we take the number 2 and number 3 together? To what level would you assess, and this is not scientific, to what level do you think your community agrees on housing needs? And, Sheila just talked about, rental as a strong housing need and affordable rental as an example. And then the third question is related, but it's a little different. To what level does your community agree on housing solutions? And I think that those are different things. In some communities, not to lead you, but solutions are often harder than agreeing on the needs. But I just wanted to get a sense of where you think Townsend is at in general. And I don't know who wants to take a stab at that.
I'll jump in. Only because I've been here so long, I guess. Townsend is good, and I'm talking about all the years. I'm not talking about now.
Okay.
So I don't want anybody to take any offense, but in all of the years, in all of the boards, and I've served on many, they'll agree on an idea, but there's no action.
Yep.
There's no assigning of, yeah, that is a good idea. Let's do it. I can't tell you how many times I have heard boards say, but we are business friendly. Well, no, you're not. Well, okay. Well, we do know that people need housing. Well, what are you going to do about it? I mean, the boards themselves that are the active volunteers that are trying to put things forward are not the institutors. Okay, all they can do is come up with the ideas, come up with the plan, do as much research background as they can, and give what they think the best proposed plan is. And then you get, and this is just a small group, so then you get 100 people in the room to vote on this, and a couple of people have questions, and then you have people going with, well, yeah, how come they didn't do that? Or how come they didn't say that? It's the same every single year. So you get to a point where, how long do your volunteers keep beating themselves,
Yeah.
Against the wall? Because that's all they're doing is talking to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are communities like Leominster, for instance, where the mayor and developers have worked in conjunction with a neighboring town to put up multiple rental units. I mean, hundreds. Okay. And they need that. I mean, the state needs that. Granted, there's going to be an influx in the community, but in some of the communities, their schools aren't filled. The kids have already left. So you're not providing the housing needs for those who want to retire, okay, and get out of their homes and be in single level homes. I've talked over the last 30 years, I've talked to several builders about, we need houses that people can sell their bigger house and move into a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, 1-car garage ranch. And because they want to stay in town. Nobody's been able to do it because they don't like working with the planning board, or they don't like working with zoning, or our bylaws are too restrictive. So you have all these people that are volunteering and they're on a, like the mouse on the wheel.
Yeah.
Hamster
In
wheel.
a box.
The hamster wheel. Yeah.
The hamster wheel, or they're in one of those mazes and they can't get out of the box.
Yeah.
That's how, I mean, I've seen a lot on a lot of different communities, and we were just so thrilled. It took us 3 times to get HUD 202 financing to build, towns and woods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's and we were very fortunate and very grateful, but it took 7 years.
Yeah.
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 And that's what we're up against in a town like Townsend. I have not seen any selectmen ever in my 45 years in town that stood up for building ever. So housing was not their priority. I haven't even seen one stand up for business. And we have a couple of really good, kind businesses in town that have done a lot for the town that people don't understand and they don't appreciate.
Yeah.
So those kind of alliances have not been created by the leadership in this town.
Okay.
Laura, can I just respond?
Yeah, Joan, go ahead. Mhm.
Thank you. Something Lori said. Lori, my experience though is I have yet to meet a builder who is willing to go in and build little houses like that. I mean, it's just, they just won't do it. There's not enough money in it for them.
Yes, but there were times when it was. Now you're looking at a different economy where the cost of lumber has gone sky high. The only people that are going to pay the end result of the cost of the increase in housing is the consumer.
Right,
And
but I'm just saying, I mean, find me a builder that has a big chunk of land that is willing to fill it up with like the perfect little house that everybody needs, and we all know what that looks like. I mean, I don't think that builder exists.
I'm telling you that years ago, we did meet with somebody at the Housing Authority, probably 20 years ago now, that was interested in doing that. And we tried talking to him. It did not come to fruition. But we don't have the zoning that allows stuff. Okay, if you're too close to wetlands or you're,
Yeah.
you know, it's a sand pit. I'm telling you, there was interest. And you turn to those if you see what the town has done and put some of these builders through, they don't ever want to come back here. They
Okay.
don't. Between conservation and zoning, it's a nightmare.
I'll stop, but I think it's money driven. I think it's profit driven.
Now it is. Now it is.
Sheila?
So I just as a little note first, and what she was just saying about going through the boards, kind of humorous. But when I first started practicing law in this area, and I had to go before one of those boards, conservation or zoning, in one of the towns, kind of clusters of towns here. And I remember the attorney that I worked for saying, "I would rather try a first-degree murder trial to a jury than go before any of those boards." Because he's like, you know why? Because you could win. And they, unlike those boards, that they are going to do everything they can to stop you. And it honestly feels like they thought the name of the game was to make sure you couldn't do something. That's how you always feel in those meetings. But one other thing that, and this is more of, I guess, a regional issue too, when one of the handicaps we also have is no transportation. Unlike Leominster and neighboring town of Fitchburg, they have a public transportation with stops throughout those cities. We don't, other than the seniors, MART and Lowell Regional Transport, they do minimal transportation. So that's something that when you're thinking of, housing,
Yep.
Ideally you'd get it somewhere near stores,
Yeah.
or like one grocery store, but I don't know how that would work. But unfortunately, there's an infrastructure issue beyond housing that makes it more difficult to put affordable housing in.
Yep. And so we're already starting to talk about number 4 here, greatest obstacles. So infrastructure, transportation, the sewer system, no sewer system rather. But this capacity issue, Lori, that you were talking about, and just the market that Joan was talking about, what actually can be profitable, and then your zoning as well in terms of what it allows. Are there any other obstacles that you think I should kind of be aware of right off the get-go?
I just want to jump in and say that for number 2, the community, a lot of the community and the many town meetings that I've been into, people don't think that we have a housing need, and it's very frustrating to me. They don't understand that we do. They see what they want as, this is the way we want the town, but it's like there is a housing crunch, and we've been hitting ourselves against the wall for the past 7 years about that. Which goes to what level does your community agree on housing solutions? exactly what Lori said, because nobody doesn't believe that there's a housing issue. So why should we have a solution?
Yeah, okay.
If I may, it's like, you get to buy into I've heard this from a number of people. I love it here. I just love it here. I want it to stay the same.
Mhm.
Well, life goes on and nothing stays the same. But if you get people on boards that this is their mentality, they just want it to stay the same for all the years to come. Where is your tax dollar going to come from? How are you going to prepare for your future when all core items, even if you're in your own household, your core expenses go up every year? We're not the government. We can't just print money and spend trillions of dollars and think, oh, well, that's okay. The government's doing, well, the government's not doing anything. All of that's coming from taxpayers. They're going to get the money from the taxpayer, not from themselves. So there's a lot of issues here. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was we lost in 2 years ago, or almost 3 years ago, we lost 30 units of housing in Townsend because of fire. An apartment building burnt.
Oh, wow.
And most recently, and Sheila, maybe you know this, there was also another loss in Pepperell. There was one in Pepperell right around the same time the one we lost here, which was a couple
There
of
was
years.
one in Groton.
And then there was
last year.
Groton, and there was and so each one of these communities has lost rental housing through fire. Townsend's not been rebuilt.
Yeah.
And the plan that's been brought before the town is for larger units, meaning less units than what was lost. That's an obstacle.
The plan for redevelopment of the site, are you talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know about Pepperell and
Yeah.
Groton, but this, I heard, I have not seen it. Well, no, I do know, because planning board already talked about the fact that his plan was for larger units, which meant that it was going to be lesser units, because I don't think they're letting him change the footprint. I think the footprint's going to be the same.
I see.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, those things happen and we don't have any preparedness for it.
Yeah. Okay, so this is really helpful for me, and I'm watching the time here. I don't want to overstay my welcome. But the last question is just about what entities are working to address housing needs, and I know you have your board and the Affordable Housing Trust and the Planning Board. Are there other entities that are working in the town that I should know about in terms of your capacity?
Well, we have a town properties committee, and they were just appointed. It's a yearly appointment, and hopefully they're going to meet within the next week, because there is a quorum that's been appointed to review all the they generally review all the properties that the town owns every year.
And that includes tax title properties?
Yes, it does. And Chaz, I'm going to have a talk with you before that committee meets to find out what it is the selectmen are looking for.
Yeah, and we would love that data layer to map that out, all the current town-owned properties as well as the tax foreclosed properties. And then if there's any information the town properties can give us in terms of priorities, I don't know if they're looking at potential for housing development or housing sites or sites to transfer to the trust, but that would be really important for us to get information on.
One thing I would say about the tax takings, and I can't speak for Townsend specifically, but it would be something to look into. A lot of the towns don't go through with it. They don't perfect the foreclosure process of a tax taking. So they may give you notice, they may put it on their books, but that's all they really do. They don't evict people. I would say, I don't think Townsend does evict people on tax.
Well, we did just have a tax lien sale.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, though there was no, you're correct, Sheila, there was no one evicted.
Yeah.
But that is one, that tax title list, Chaz, is one of the things on the agenda for the town properties. Because you've got myself and Kevin who are on there, are pretty familiar with all the properties. If I don't know one, he knows one, kind of thing. So that we should be able to talk to, and the associate assessors on that as well.
Well, the purpose behind that was that we had the list and the letters went out and we received the revenue. So we did receive a great deal of revenue, and a lot of the individuals either paid off whatever they had or they came up with a 1-year payment plan to get caught up. And that's what our goal was.
Yeah.
As far as the tax liens that were purchased by one entity, those were taxes, back taxes that have been on forever, that have just been sitting there.
I think we're going to address those anyway to see if there's something there that something could be done. I don't know. We'll look at everything and also what you want us to then advise to the board. Okay.
Right.
All right.
The goal is to make sure that we're just collecting the taxes that we're owed. On some of them, it's just we don't think that we're going to be able to collect anything on.
Okay. But you still want town properties to look at it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Every single one of those. Yeah.
Okay. So that's on the list. And Jody's taking notes, right? Jody?
he fell asleep.
Jody?
Oh,
in
no.
the Assessor's office. We'll have.
Pages and pages of notes, Laurie, and town properties and, oh, so many notes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, but that one is specifically to give back to Jen. Okay, to get her town-owned properties.
Yeah, and I'll put that on our list. So
Yeah.
I'll make sure that
I
it's
have a
part of
very
it.
long checklist. It would be easier if she just sent it to me, Jen,
Yeah.
and I will give you everything you need.
Yeah, we'll organize that. So that's really everything that I had, and I'm sure, I'm sure we could talk for a long time, but it's, I know you've been here for almost 2 hours already. So, and I want you all to know you can email me at any time if you have questions throughout this process. I am harder to get by phone. It's much better to schedule a call with me. So if you email me first, I'm happy to schedule a call as well. And that's everything. I'm going to stop my share so your faces aren't so small anymore. And that's really everything, Courtney, that I'm going to give you. But I know I got, I kind of took over the meeting here, but I hope you didn't mind that. Okay.
I want to say thank you so much for coming and meeting with us. And I think it's, we're really excited to get going. And I think it's been really helpful first meeting here for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the chair to sign the contract.
Great. Do I have a second?
Second that motion.
Thank you. Did we lose Natalie?
She ran out of hamburgers.
Okay. All right. We still have 3 of us.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Roll
Yes,
call
that's
vote.
common.
Can I get a roll call vote on that?
Laura Schifrin, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Courtney Brella, yes. Great. So we'll go ahead and get that all set, Jen, and get it back over to you.
All right, that sounds good. And the first thing I'm going to do is get a list together. But Lori or anyone who can send me what the Regional Planning Association has done, that would be helpful because then I'll know what I need to, if I need to ask for anything.
Yeah, I'll send you, I
specific.
can send you the data that I've received from MRPC. I'll also send you, we had a housing forum. I can send you all of that information as well. So.
Oh, great. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. All right, good. Well, thank you. It was really great to meet you all and hear this discussion. And I'm looking forward to my tour next week, and I'll reach out to you, Lori.
Great.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Good night.
See you later.
All right. How are you guys doing? Good? Everybody good? Just checking.
It was good.
If
Okay,
we can go as quickly, because I'm
Yep.
still
Yeah.
at work and I'm like leaving shortly.
I hear you. Okay, so let's keep moving here.
Been a long day.
I
Been a
heard
long
I
day.
heard Sheila.
I agree with you. So Joan, I'm so sorry I put you after. I didn't quite realize we were going to be so long. So if you'd like to give us your update.
Thank you. I just want to everybody report on the CVRF funds payout for the rental and mortgage assistance. Now the town, we did have $100,000. We've paid out $35,500 only, and there are no new applications in the pipeline. And I keep putting it up on Nextdoor. I think we're kind of, you know, it's going to run out, expire pretty soon. I think, well, maybe the good news is people don't need it. But I did want to tell you that.
I'm going to add to that, Joan, that I did have, we received, I think we signed an extension to try to extend this until December 31st. It was signed and sent through. I don't know if that has been approved. That's number one. And number two, it was suggested to let COG know that they're the ones that need to market this, because we need more people in the pipeline. And I believe that
for our COVID funds.
well, there's several different areas that need to be marketed, and they need to market that.
Right. Well, COG really needs to market.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm just talking about the rental and mortgage assistance COVID
Okay.
care funds. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The CMHA. That CMHA is our grant manager.
So can I interject, Joan? I personally know of people now that are being taken to court because they have not paid their rent. They also have not applied for assistance.
Well, give them my phone number.
It isn't just, no, I've given them the flyer. I've told them they should be doing this, and they don't. You can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Right. And you know, I think some people don't want their names to get into town hall. I've heard that.
What would their names have to do with anything?
Because then people in town hall would know their names, and then people in town would know their names. I think there's an element of, you know, people are proud, and I just encourage everybody. I said, hey man, it's your money. It's just your money, and tax dollars coming right back at you.
But town hall doesn't get their names.
No. And not only that, their landlord is not getting any rent. So now you're going to court, because courts are open. So now you're going to court. I know of 3 in this next week, not mine, but 3 in this next week that are going to court. So you tell me how that's better than not applying for assistance. You've already done someone wrong. There's the housing authority and the trust who've made sure that there's an avenue to get assistance, but you won't do it?
Well, again, feel free to give anyone my phone call. And Chaz, you are correct. It does. The names do not go to town hall. They go to CMHA. Yeah.
The only thing is I can say, and I don't know about it specifically with your program, but like I have heard from people like a TEO, like they'll get people that come from other towns. Patch and Pepperell gets people from other towns, because a lot of people don't want people in their own town to see them needing something.
Right. So there's pride.
But all we can do is offer it. You know, the rest is is up
And
to,
as long as they know it's confidential, I mean, there's a way to do it without walking into town hall. So.
And the people at CMHA are so lovely and so helpful. I have never met a greater bunch of folks.
Oh, good.
They work with Raft. Is that the same thing?
I mean, they've got every program there is. They can patch together a beautiful program. There's even 12 months of utility bills that can be paid. But again, it has to be COVID related stuff. But they will patch together a program with you name it, and we go for it, you know? The
I
coach
believe
it.
chairs, the raft, the this, the that, they'll do back rent, forward rent.
Yeah. There's just no housing to use it on.
All right, let's.
I don't know if you guys have heard the mess though with Devon's Crest and air.
Mhm.
It's going to be nothing short of disastrous.
Yep,
It's
I agree.
going to be 120 families probably displaced, they said.
Now what happened there? I did not, I'm sorry.
So the guy who owned Devon's Crest for, I don't know, 30, 40 years or something, sold it to a company, Brady Sullivan, that's like a developing, real estate kind of company. And they all got notices that they are going to have to leave, that they're going to be fixing it up and that they can apply to get back in. But the rents, like some of them are paying like $600 a month, and they're going to now have to pay like $1,900 to $2,200 when they're renovated. And there's just no, just meeting with some of them, it means some are disabled, but they've got kids, so they can't even really get into a disabled housing program. And some are elderly, but not that elderly, or you know what I mean? Like they're just lost. I don't know how the area is going to absorb it because there's nothing available. And that's why when they were talking about, I talked to the people from Brady Sullivan and they were like, well, they can use this program and that program. I said, no, I'm fully aware of the programs, but there's nowhere to go.
Right. There's no housing.
They can't use it. Yeah.
It's really not Brady and Sullivan's.
No, they have every right to develop it.
And
But-
make it better. Okay, they have a right to
Oh,
make
yeah.
it better, and the cost of doing so, it costs more money today. And this does not go back to today. It's generations of not preparing for the future.
Right.
Now-
Oh, no, I agree. I
and
agree.
all the people coming in the country, where are they going to live?
Right.
Okay,
Well,
open the floodgates,
no,
but you don't
But-
have housing.
just with the air situation, 10 or 11 years ago, they all shot down Air, Harvard, and Shirley, who were the three towns that fund Air, Devon's or go to Devon. And they voted down that Vicksburg Square project, and that would have been 200 units.
Right, I remember that.
And now,
Horrible.
but the guy said the guy who was going to do it is still interested in doing it, but it's the not in my backyard. Harvard has the school contract and Harvard doesn't want them all going to their schools. I don't know. I don't know why Air voted it down. Shirley's the only one who agreed to it the last time.
Right. My backyard. Well, what backyard are they going to be in? Yeah.
Well, I know. Well, I'm trying to get Vicksburg Square, the people to redevelop it. But even if they do, it's still another, few years before we're going to have that done.
That's right. That's
It's not
right.
going to help someone who's getting evicted this week.
Right. So the foresight of all of this has not been there.
No,
All right,
What are we supposed to do?
let's keep moving just to, I know
sorry.
everybody's been a long, no, it's all right. I totally understand. I just know it's been a long night for everybody. So if we can go to 3.1, Dudley Road Charitable Trust transfer update.
I had a meeting with Adam, Town Council, and he agrees with me that that it should be able to be done without a problem. He's investigating now whether or not we need to go to town meeting or not. The initial is that he says, I don't really think we need to because it's going from one trust to another. It still has town selectmen oversight if it goes into the affordable trust. He needed documentation, so I sent him Lori, that one packet that you and I put together, God only knows how long ago, that had all of the information from the land swap for Townsend Woods and Atwood Acres, all of that HUD 202 paperwork. I submitted it all to Sheila. I sent you that too.
Yeah, I have the actual, the documents, the trust documents.
Yep. Yep.
I still have all that.
I gave him all of that information, and he is going to be, he was on vacation for 2 weeks, so I don't even think that he probably looked at it until maybe this week, beginning of this week. But and it, once he looks at it and we find out that, then we can talk more about the land swap, which is 3.2. So we'll have to just keep that on the agenda and talk about it later.
Okay. Yep. So we'll pass by that one, and Jody, if we can keep that on for next time. And so we'll go to the 3.3 master plan housing chapter review. And I know, Laura, you sent across a few things this week.
Yeah, I was hoping that, and I have a pile here and I don't have that in front of me. I do have Chaz's response. That's all I have is Chaz's response. I don't have, I was hoping to get input from the board as to any changes that you might like to see on this, so that when planning meets on Monday, we can give the housing authorities perspective on this, because the housing chapter, I think it was just written by someone on the master plan, and without a lot of background information. There was some data that they got, and I thought I got a copy of it, but I'll tell you, one of the things they sent was like 180 pages, and I started to print it, and that was like a dumb thing to do, because it must have been an Excel spreadsheet, because they go from, I
I
don't
don't print well.
know how you just cipher that, but if you could privately, Courtney or Natalie, just send me your thoughts. And Chaz, if you and I can talk about some edits before Monday night, if that's possible.
Sure.
So we can be on solid footing with this and more in line with what we're actually doing for the HPP.
Yep.
And not that the master plan is the HPP, but they should
be mentioning the HPP, and they should be, yep.
Right. It should be complementing each other, not being in different directions.
Yep.
Kind of thing. Otherwise, there's no sense in approving this chapter for the master plan.
Yep.
If we're not all on the same page.
Yep. I agree.
Right? Okay. So you and I will get together before Monday night, and Courtney, your comments would be welcomed as well on the housing chapter review.
Yep.
Okay. All
Yep.
right. Thank you.
Okay. 3.4 tenant seat process update.
None. Sorry.
Okay. 3.5 town webpage discussion. I have to say I haven't had a chance to really dig into this. Jody and I went back and forth about emails a little bit to get me on there, but let's keep this on for now.
Yes. Okay.
3.6 bills payable signatures. Did we have?
That's me. So I just need you guys to authorize someone to come in and sign off on our bills payable. You've already approved them, but I need signatures for the accounting office.
I can do
So
if you want.
that's
if-
fine.
if
You
guys-
or Chaz or who's ever available to pop in to just sign off on this stuff, just so the accounting end is all set.
Okay. Is that easier for me probably because I'm working in town, but do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I don't really care. I sign 6,000 documents a day over there, for God's sake.
Oh, well, then you can do it. If you're there every
Yeah.
day.
I don't care who does it, just somebody needs to, because I don't want the accountant to yell at me.
Yes, Jody, if you put it upstairs when Veronica's there, and just say Chaz needs to sign this, she'll put it on the file cabinet. I'll sign it, and it'll get down to Terry.
Thank you.
Well, we got to vote on that, actually.
I make a motion to have Chaz sign approval on the bills payable.
And I second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Laura Schifrin, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Courtney Burley, yes.
Thank you.
That was easy.
I know how Terry can get.
3.7 correspondence and clerk's announcements. And then Jody, you sent across, or those the couple of documents you sent here?
Yep, let me. What did I send? I think, did I send out that email, the outreach?
Yep.
Okay, and whatever you want to start with, I have the zoning board of appeals, Warren Road, just FYI.
I mean, I don't know that we have to make any motions on these. I read about the outreach program, so fine, thank you. And the Warren Road, I actually watched the zoning meeting where that took place. So, I mean, it's nothing for us to comment on.
Okay, we don't have
My
to,
opinion.
okay. And we don't have to send anything back to anybody on those, on that one at least.
I don't think so, but.
No, I think it's more of just letting us know, keeping everybody on the loop, at all the departments that are on that
Yeah.
memo.
Okay, great.
And I saw the minutes. Courtney, did you want a motion to approve the minutes?
Yep, I did review them as well. I didn't have any comments. Is everybody else?
Yeah, I didn't have any comments either.
I lost those too. What was the date on that?
June 24th.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented of June 24th, 2021.
I second.
Roll call vote.
Laura Schifrin, aye.
Sexton Durrani and I.
And Courtney Borelli, aye. Okay. Do you want to talk about our next meeting? I know we're going to be meeting in September, finding that date, but would you like to have an August meeting? So we can reconvene?
I don't know, Chaz, can we call the chair at this point and see what happens with the master plan, or if we have to meet after Jen gets back to us or something? Because other than that, I don't know if we're going to have, is there anything else pressing that we should meet in August?
The only thing that I would have would be the land swap. Jody, I just sent over to the housing mailbox that MBTA communities thing. Can you forward that to Courtney? I didn't have Courtney's email address in my selectman mailbox, so I couldn't forward it over. So
If you want to just do a tentative date as Thursday, August 19th.
yeah, why don't we do that, and then
And book it. And then if something, if we don't have any meat to meet with, then
And I will not have session because we're off for the month of August.
oh, good. Well, we may have to meet just to meet with Sheila.
Yeah, just to have you be on time.
right?
Well, you know what the killer is? It used to always be Wednesdays and you could just kind of count on it.
Yeah.
But now it's all over the map. It's like Fridays, Thursdays, Mondays, whenever they decide. It's not a uniform thing anymore.
Well, I was trying to get in touch with Senator Cronin for the past 2 days, and he's like calling me in between your breaks that you were having, so we could.
Yeah.
All right, I'll finish up this conversation in an hour and 15 minutes. Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. No. It's is it anything else I can help with that? It's David Conowan. I'm not sure if it's a joint House Senate thing.
Yeah, he'll get in touch with you. Actually,
okay.
I talked to his aide Kevin, and
Okay.
Kevin's going to touch base with you. He said today.
Yeah, because is it still about having the meeting that we never had?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sheila, is there anything else that you want to tell us that's going on, or that you can tell us?
Well, as if you were listening today in the chamber, you would think we're going to get all sorts of extra money into the state from gambling. So that's nice to know. Okay.
Here.
And you're going to be able to even bet on school games, college games.
Yeah. Sports skip betting.
Yeah, which I didn't know there was such a need for the college. I thought that was kind of like the whole thing with the what do they call the NCAA, whatever I thought they didn't want people betting on college students, but anyway, they are gonna, and then the kids will get some money out of it or something. So that's kind of weird, but it passed almost unanimously. I think there was only 3 no's because overall it's supposed to bring a lot of revenue in. So that's one thing. The other thing for Townsend, I was able to get Townsend Ecumenical Outreach some money. And they're going to try to be doing a mobile van to go around to some people that can't get to them, I guess, or don't feel comfortable getting to them. And I know John got some money for the veterans. So
Good.
those are our two Townsend things that are budget wise coming out.
Yep.
I'm
watching the volleyball thing with the how they're doing with the ARPA funds.
Yeah, that's going to be the next big fight.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing to
happen. And I was really kind of disappointed. I would have definitely voted for the governor's proposal to do the tax holiday for August and September, because just to get businesses jump started, if you had not competing with New Hampshire for 2 full months would really help a lot of it. And where we have the most money we've ever had in our rainy day fund, I think it's close to 5 million, 5 billion, excuse me, dollars, which is just from when I started, it's unbelievable.
Well, Townsend needs a new bridge. Tell them.
All right. I will. Well, there's got to be probably some program out there to get it too. That's the thing. There's like, and the hard part is people are saying like, well, you get all this money, but it's not getting to the people that need it. I get those emails and texts all the time. But again, the hard part about getting people money for rent is you have to have a place to rent.
Yep.
So, the two problems are really becoming.
Yeah, but what I was talking about before is people in the units now. They have a roof over their heads. They're not paying for the roof.
Right. But I've got people that are going to, like this woman who wrote me about, was like War and Peace today about her situation of not having housing. And, she's like, it's disgraceful that people that live in this country and try hard and we're just treated like dirt and there's no place to rent. But it's just hard. You can't just produce housing. You guys are all trying to, obviously. I'm preaching to the choir, but the problem is, and I was saying to my husband, it's like, it's been a huge problem for a long time. And I was at that planning board meeting when that person got up and like kind of yelled at me and said, there really is no housing crisis.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? And I think they were from
remember. Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it was really, I said, oh no, there is a housing crisis, but I feel like the world fell asleep at the wheel for like 10 years or something.
Yeah.
40 years.
I feel like Dad is going to fall asleep at the wheel right now, though. So I'm done talking, right? Sorry.
No, you didn't have to stop talking.
No, you didn't. You don't. But I'm just gonna ask for a motion to adjourn because I really want to get out of here.
Yeah, that's okay.
I've been here for 10 hours.
We all look like we've been around the block a couple of times today.
Sheila, calming. Let's get together, okay?
All right. Okay.
Before you guys go, confirm August 19th. That was the tentative.
Yep. 7. Okay.
Yeah.
7.
And Sheila, if you have some time to give me a chat.
Yeah, I can call. Are you available at all tomorrow morning?
Let me look.
Well, I will be in my car quite a bit tomorrow. So I have to go back to the North Shore for a funeral, and then I'll be on my way there and on my way back. Nobody can get me, okay. I can call.
Okay.
So if afternoon's there, I'll be on my way back.
Yeah, give me a call on the way back.
Okay. All right. And then
motion to adjourn.
Please notify TCAM about August 19th. Thank you.
Yep, will do.
Okay.
Sorry,
I
Larry.
second the motion.
Great. Roll call.
Laura Schifrin, aye.
Sexton Durrani and I.
And Courtney Briley, aye.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
bye,
night.
everyone.
Bye.
Take care.